You're watching News Central now. I am Judith Atibi. The headlines. Ex-CBN Governor Emefiele accused of forging Buhari boss Mustafa's signature. Mali, Niger Republic, Burkina Faso announce military cooperation. Zimbabwe condemns fresh U.S. sanctions. The full details of these and more shortly. We'll begin the news at this hour in West Africa, where the trial of the immediate past governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele, continued on Thursday before the Federal Capital Territory High Court in Maitama, with a forensic analyst and expert on handwriting analysis confirming that the two signatures used to obtain $6.2 million allegedly paid to foreign election observers in the 2023 general elections were forged. The witness, Bamayi Haruna Mairiga, second to the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission by the Nigerian Immigration Service since 2018, says he compared the disputed documents and the original signatures of former President Buhari and Secretary to the Government of the Federation and found inconsistencies in the signatures. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission is prosecuting Emefiele on an amended 20 counts charge bordering on forgery, criminal conspiracy, conferring undue advantage, and breach of trust, among others. After listening to their submissions, Justice Hamza Muazu adjourned till March the 11th for the continuation of trial. Still on judicial matters, the Court of Appeal in Abuja has affirmed Julius Abure as the chairman of the Labour Party. The appellate court also set aside the decision of the Federal Capital Territory High Court, which last year restrained Abure and two others from parading themselves as national officers of the party. In the judgment delivered by Justice Amma Baka, the appellate court held that the High Court was wrong to have assumed jurisdiction on the matter. The appellate court also awarded a cost of 1 million naira in favor of Abure against the respondent, Lamidi Apapa. Joining me, and on to security matters, some bandits were reported to have invaded the LEA primary school, Kuriga, in the troubled Chiko local government area of Kaduna State, northern Nigeria, kidnapping scores of pupils on Thursday morning. A resident of the area said no fewer than 100 pupils were taken away by the bandits who stormed the town in large numbers. It was also gathered that the head teacher of the school, as well as other staff, were among those abducted by the hoodlums. On Thursday, bandits invaded the Gonin Gura, the troubled same Chiko local government area, forcing residents to barricade the Kaduna-Abuja expressway, protesting the adoption of an unspecified number of people in the area. And on to the rising cost of living, there are strong indications that organized labor will push for 500,000 naira as the minimum wage as the zonal public hearing on the new wage structure begins today in Lagos, Kano, Enugu, Akwa Ibom, Adamawa, and Abuja. The president of the Nigerian Labour Congress, NLC, Joe Ajaure, in an interview with newsmen on February 11th, had stated that if the ongoing inflation continued, organized labor might push for a new minimum wage of up to 1 million naira for Nigerian workers. The public hearing on the new minimum wage, which will be held simultaneously in all 6 geopolitical zones, is expected to receive inputs from organized labor, state governors, ministers, civil society groups, and the organized private sector on a new minimum wage reflective of the current economic realities and the workers' aspirations. Meanwhile, the Nigerian Labour Congress has demanded 794,000 naira as a new national minimum wage for workers in Southwest geopolitical zone. The Labour Union in the Southwest, through the chairman of the Lagos State chapter of the NLC, Fumi Sise, made the demand during her presentation at the ongoing public hearing of the Tripartite Committee on National Minimum Wage in Ikeja, Lagos on Thursday. Cisse noted that the demand was jointly agreed on by all the members of the union in Southwest. President Bola Tinubu, through Vice President Kashim Shettima, inaugurated a 37-member panel on the new minimum wage in the council chamber of the State House in Abuja on January 30th of 2024. The Council of Retired Federal Permanent Secretaries has called on Nigeria's government to initiate reforms aimed at repositioning its civil and public service. This was as the council held a colloquium in Nigeria's capital, Abuja, where members expressed worry at the current state of the service. Amadi Uyi reports.
In attendance at this colloquium are retired permanent secretaries from the nation's public and civil service. Many of them say the service is fundamental to Nigeria achieving its developmental aspirations.
Civil service is an institution which signifies, first of all, humility. Secondly, service. Thirdly, commitment in terms of imparting knowledge and advising government on policy options that will enhance the living condition and the economy of the country.
They say the public and civil service has retrogressed in the last few years, expressing worry over its current state.
We are very, very sad about the situation in our country. We are very, very sad about the perception of the civil service. We are very, very sad about the talks on corruption, inefficiency, incompetence, and so on and so forth. So it is in our mind to be bold enough to tell us the truth that we should, for the purpose of the survival of this great country, retrace our steps and do the correct thing.
Look, it's not enough for us to sit down and throw brickbats at the politicians, say that they are not committed, they are not patriotic, they don't even know what to do, and we remain in this civil service while in fact we could also throw in the hat, join the fray, and see what difference we can make to the political class.
They are calling for radical reforms, saying restoring the public and civil service will transform the nation.
We have to find a way to restore this sense of responsible, accountable, transparent public servant. But governments have to find a way of giving us, the confidence that if we do the right thing and we retire, we'll retire happily.
Members of the Council of Retired Permanent Secretaries are also calling on government to tap from the potentials available within their lot. They say they are open to collaboration with governments in its quest to reposition the public and civil service. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadin Uyi.
Minister of Finance and the Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edun, has blamed the current inflation in the country on 8 years of printing money without matching it with productivity by former President Muhammadu Buhari. Edun, who disclosed this during an interface with the Senate Committee on Finance, said during the period, the printing of naira in trillions was carried out without matching it with productivity. The finance minister reiterated the resolve of the federal government to audit the 22.7 trillion naira Ways and Means advance under former President Buhari's administration or regime. He said the consequences of the 8 years of printing money without productivity is high inflation confronting the country now.
8 years, the weak were left to their own devices. It is the privileged few that took everything. That's the reality. So that money supply must be sucked back out to balance the economy. You, distinguished senators, have helped. You have given us the mandate to raise 7 trillion naira, which we will do by sucking money from the market, using to pay back the central bank and give the government a balanced books. We are going to audit. Even the 22.7 trillion it's still there, and that also must be dealt with through the market, not through something that was just printed. But we will audit because we need to be sure.
People you are giving surplus to are the same people that are employed. They collect their salary, they collect their allowances, they collect their pardon anywhere they go. So it's very important, Mr. Minister, you look at that. And then the envelope budgeting, which one of us spoke about, we will see so many line items. It's continuous, it's just in the system. What from the budget office, they just roll it out and present it as a budget. There's need for us to seriously, not only you on that side, but even us here, to look at it. And this is the reason why we need to create the office, this budget office in national. It's very important. So with this, I think I will commend the Honorable Minister for being up to date with the situation about the economy, and also appeal to the Honorable Minister.
In his closing remarks, the chairman of the committee, Senator Sani Musa, said the interactive session will be a continuous exercise in knowing the short-term and long-term plans of the government on its way out of the precarious situation. The Africa SMEs Excellence Conference isn't just about networking and learning. It's a platform for collaboration, innovation and growth, supported by the Lagos State Ministry of Wealth Creation. It promises to be a game changer for SMEs across the continent. News Central's Bettina Nweli reports.
According to Trading Economics, Global Macro Models and Analyst Expectations, inflation rate in Nigeria increased to 29.9% in January from 28.92% in December of 2023 and is expected to be 32.00% by the end of this quarter. Businesses around the country are struggling to stay afloat, while others have shut down completely as a result of the many challenges of SMEs.
The greatest tool any business person would have is your mind. Your ability to be able to envision the future will determine the actions you're going to take. Finance and all of that. We can talk about operations, HR, processes and all that. But if you do not have the right mindset, all of those things will mean nothing.
Inflation continues to worsen the cost of living of the populace. With persistent inflation, businesses and households will continue to perform poorly, and citizens will continue to pay more for the same goods and services.
We must go back, to production, to agriculture, at the point where our net inflow from what we export and what we import, when that which we produce is more than what we bring in, then we'll stabilize.
The crisis associated with the high cost of living affects more than just individual bank accounts. It also hurts and affects the mental health as it increases worry and anxiety.
This program is intended to open the eyes of small-scale business owners to see how they can manage their businesses, how they can grow it, despite all the challenges.
Nǹkan tí mo kọ́ níbí báyìí ó sọ fún mi pé tí mo bá fẹ́ tajà mo gbọ́dọ̀ plan nípa nǹkan tí mo fẹ́ ṣe. So tí mo bá dẹ̀ plan, mo gbọ́dọ̀ work towards it. Then tí mo bá wá lack of owó, so mo gbọ́dọ̀ ronú ọ̀nà tí mo lè gbé gbà láti mọ bí mo ṣe máa jẹ́ kí ọjà yẹn kó máa lọ sókè dáadáa.
The consequence and impact of inflation in recent times in Nigeria cannot be overemphasized. It is hoped that most Nigerians managing small businesses will someday not have to worry about the struggle to survive daily because of low sales. In Lagos, for News Central, Bettina Nweli.
The governor of Delta State, South Nigeria, Sheriff Oboriwori, has identified entrepreneurship and skill acquisition as key to wealth creation in a nation plagued with unemployment and economic challenges. Governor Oboriwori made the remark when he received the state coordinator of the National Youth Corps Service, Alao Olusegun, and his delegation at Government House, Asaba. Oboriwori thanked the NYSC for its contribution to the state's development. Earlier in his remarks as well, Olusegun appreciated Governor Oboriwori for the wonderful works at the NYSC permanent camp at Isale-Oku, describing it as one of the best in the country.
We will continue to see how we can also partner together. When we're having our entrepreneurship programs, we also invite you to add your value to it, because it's very key. Entrepreneurship is very key, because you finish and at the end of the day, there's no job. But it is skill that we're able to acquire that will keep you going, depending on you get a suitable job. So this white collar job is not easy to get white collar job. So the entrepreneurship is very, very key.
And this is News Now on News Central TV. We'll take a short break. We'll be back after this. Stay with us. And welcome back. We turn our attention now to business as reaction have trailed the signing of 3 executive orders to help improve the investment climate and position Nigeria as the preferred investment destination for the oil and gas sector in Africa by Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu. In a statement by his special advisor on media and publicity, Ajuri Ngelele, the documents are in line with the president's efforts to remove obstacles to investments in Nigeria, harness the nation's resources, and diversify the economy for the benefit of all Nigerians. The orders are to introduce fiscal incentives for oil and gas projects, reduce contracting costs and timelines, and promote cost efficiency in local content requirements. We move to Ghana and its anti-gay bill. Since the passing of Ghana's controversial anti-gay bill last week, activists and members of the LGBTQ+ community have expressed their concerns that the bill leaves them open to persecution. On Ghanaian Independence Day, community groups all over the world took their concerns to Ghanaian high commissions in their cities, including Amsterdam and Copenhagen. Joining us now to give us a bit more on this story is our international correspondent, Afia Hagen. Afia, tell us a little bit about the details of the so-called anti-gay bill being protested against yesterday.
Absolutely. Well, this is the Proper Human Sexual Rights and Ghanaian Family Values Bill, otherwise known as the anti-gay bill. And it is being touted in Parliament. It was passed by both parties last week. However, it needs the assent of half of the members of Parliament for it to go through. And it's not sure how many members of Parliament, how many politicians were actually in the chamber at the time of the passing of this bill. So basically, whereas gay sex is already illegal in Ghana, this bill goes a bit further. It kind of incites people to report other people that they may think or suspect are of the gay community as well. There's prison sentences mentioned in this bill also, and there's also it also talks about activists of this bill. People who are activists of the LGBTQ+ community are also mentioned in this bill, could also face up to 5 years in prison if they are thought to be supporting members of the LGBTQ+ community. If you are found to be of that community, you face up to 3 years in prison.
Now, what do people opposed to the bill have to say about it?
Well, members of the LGBTQ+ community and their allies say that this bill leaves them open to persecution and leaves them open to being thrown in jail, but also for people to be outed whilst they might not even be of that community. Suspicion may fall on people incorrectly. Campaigners say that people of the community feel they will be forced to go underground or forced to go into hiding, and that applies to allies and campaigners as well. So they say that this is against their human rights. And also that actually the law against gay sex or gay marriage or anything to do with the LGBTQ plus community actually derives from colonial rule. And it was a law that was brought in by the British when they ruled Ghana. And now it seems that Ghana is hanging on to that colonial rule, which doesn't tie in with Ghanaian or indeed African values.
Right. Now, the bill isn't yet a law, and I'm sure it's not yet a law, that is certain. What will that ever happen?
That's right. The bill isn't a law yet because the Supreme Court has to look at its constitutionality. There's a few issues there. First of all, where the amount of MPs in Parliament at the time of this law being passed. President Nana Akufo-Addo is also concerned about the bill. He's concerned about the human rights implications. And also, let's be honest, he's concerned about how Ghana looks on the international stage. Will it ever become a law? It won't happen before the election in December, before the presidential and parliamentary election. Nana Akufo-Addo will make sure that it's kicked into the long grass and it's something that's not something that he has to deal with. So we can't expect it to be passed before December. So it won't happen in 2024. Will it happen under the next administration? Well, that remains to be seen. First of all, who that administration is, which of the political parties. But remember, this did get support from both the political parties. But it's whether whoever is responsible for it feels that it's a good idea to put this into law.
Afia Hagen there, our international reporter, correspondent, I beg your pardon, on the gay anti-law. Afia, thank you so much for coming on.
Ghanaian Independence Day is usually a time of celebration and commemorating all that Ghana has achieved in the 67 years since it shook off colonial rule. But this Independence Day, outside the Ghanaian High Commission here in London, there are scenes of peaceful protest. People gathered to protest proposed tough new legislation, the Proper Human Sexual Rights and Ghanaian Family Values Bill, otherwise known as the Anti-Gay Bill, which was backed by both the main political parties. Passed by MPs last week, it imposes a jail term of up to 3 years for identifying as LGBTQ+, and 5 years for promoting their activities. However, Ghana's President Nana Akufo-Addo has said he will not give assent to the anti-gay bill until the Supreme Court rules on its constitutionality. Promoters of the bill in Ghana's parliament insist the law is for the promotion of proper human sexual rights and Ghanaian family values, but it has been condemned as an assault on human rights by the US and the UK, who have described it as regressive. Presenter, doctor and activist Dr. Ronks says they are concerned about the health implications for members of the LGBTQ+ community in Ghana.
Harking back to communism, back in the day when you could just report someone for being a communist, or even further back when you could just even report someone for being a witch, even though they probably weren't. So a minoritized group of people who already don't access the care that they need are now going to be further marginalized within a marginalized group.
The Finance Ministry has also warned that Ghana could lose up to £3 billion of World Bank funding over the next 5 to 6 years if the bill goes ahead. Activists fear there will now be witch hunts against members of the LGBTQ+ community and those who campaign for their rights, and say some will have to go into hiding. Ugandan gay rights activist Papa D says the bill is not in the spirit of the continent of Africa.
This is a ripple effect, it's ripple effecting from the fact that Uganda passed the bill. And now Ghana feels like it can do the same because there was no action that was taken onto Uganda, right? And then we're expecting also Nigeria, Kenya, because also these people still have the same copy and paste bill that is just awaiting, to see, Ghana passes it, then okay, what can we do next,
Protesters say that the LGBTQ+ community in Ghana is under attack.
I have been an ally for a number of years, and I believe gay rights, human rights, as I keep preaching. It's unacceptable for minorities to be victimized and abused.
The bill clearly violates Article 17 of Ghana's own constitution. It violates the African Charter on Human and People's Rights and the Commonwealth Charter, both of which the Ghanaian government has signed and pledged to uphold.
But some Ghanaians have a different view.
For people who choose to have sex, men who choose to have sex with men. And so the government had to spend $200 million. We're dealing with getting enough beds for our women to give birth when they are pregnant. We should now begin to divert those resources to stitch up the backsides of men who have chosen to go and have sex with men when they begin to have anal tears and anal warts. The people who lose their identity have lost their nation. Ghana is not the 51st state of the United States. American businesses that operate in Ghana are not in Ghana because of LGBTQ. They are in Ghana because they make a profit. If you think that because we are protecting our cultural values and saying no to LGBTQ, you want to lose $100 million in profit, pack up and go.
As it stands, the bill hasn't been passed into a law until the Supreme Court questions its constitutionality, but it's unlikely that that will happen before the parliamentary and presidential elections in December. But with Ghana's place on the world stage at stake, as well as billions of pounds of World Bank funding, it remains to be seen if this bill is really good for Ghana. For News Central, this is Afia Hagan.
We head now to the south of the continent, where Zimbabwe's government has condemned fresh sanctions that the U.S. imposed against the country's president and senior officials on Monday. The U.S. accused President Emmerson Mnangagwa and the others on its list of corruption and human rights abuses. A spokesperson for the president said the accusations were defamatory and a gratuitous slander against Zimbabwe's leaders and people. The new sanctions replaced a broader program introduced 2 decades ago. The Deputy Chief Secretary in President Mnangagwa's communications team, George Charaba, demanded that the U.S. promptly lift the illegal coercive measures. You're now watching News Central now. Still ahead, Norway welcomed into Ukraine's air support defense. We have the details after the break. Join us again. Away from the African continent, German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius has welcomed Norway's signing of a letter of intent to contribute to the air defense coalition supporting Ukraine's conflict against Russia's invasion. Pistorius made this known while speaking alongside his Norwegian counterpart, Borge Arid Gram, during a visit to troops taking part in Nordic response exercises.
This exercise sends a very clear message of unity and of our commitment to peace and security in Europe. Within NATO, we, Norway and Germany, are demonstrating our readiness to defend every inch of our alliance's territory. This is how credible defense works, and I'm very grateful for aggression. And I'm delighted that Norway joined the capability coalition for integrated air and missile defense, and without a doubt this is a massive contribution to our joint efforts to support Ukraine in its important defense battles against Russia's aggressions. Thank you.
And I was happy to sign this letter of intent with Boris here this morning, where it says that Norway will contribute to this air defense coalition supporting Ukraine.
Eight family members of Israeli hostages held by Hamas in Gaza held a press conference in Israel's embassy in London. In the Israel-Hamas conflict, which has already reached its 6th month, hopes for a ceasefire before Ramadan have faded. According to the health ministry in the famine-threatened zone controlled by Hamas on Thursday. The health ministry said 83 more people have been killed over the previous day, adding to a toll it says has reached 30,800 mostly women and children in a war that China called a disgrace to civilization.
look at us, look at them all the time. Keep them in the top of the agenda. Keep them in the top of everything. They must come home now, immediately now. We want them alive, and we also need the ones that are not alive anymore. Everyone got to return home, and they don't have time to wait.
How I miss him. I miss the coffee we used to drink together. I miss our arguments in our daily conversations. What a big crisis our life had. Our life come to halt. You know, soon we are celebrating Passover in Israel, the holiday of freedom. And we're leaving a chair to Elijah the prophet. I want my son to sit with us. Come join us, and bring the miracle of unity.
This is News Central now. We'll take a short break. Stay with us. In the world of sports, former Nigerian international Vincent Onyema has expressed his readiness to be part of the Super Eagles coaching crew if he's offered the job. The 41-year-old announced his shock retirement in 2015 after making over 100 appearances. Onyema, who is regarded as one of Africa's football's best goalkeepers during his time with the senior national team, said he's willing to bring his experience acquired over the years in Europe to help the team, most likely as a goalkeeper trainer. The Super Eagles legend has now followed in the footsteps of former international Emmanuel Amunike, who has also declared interest in managing the national team. The organizers of the Magic Scouting Tourney have confirmed the dates and teams that will compete in the first edition of the football scouting program. The tournament will take place at the Legacy Pitch of the National Stadium in Surulere, Lagos State, from March 10th to March 15th. The purpose of the tournament is to showcase the best young talents in Nigeria to top scouts from Europe, who will select the next big star in Nigerian football for a chance to thrive in Europe. The 8 teams that will compete in the maiden edition of the program, including 2024 Viarigio Cup semifinals, Ojodu City FC draws for the tournament have been scheduled to take place on Saturday, March 9th. Danish club FC Midtjylland have revealed that their Swedish midfielder Christopher Olsen is suffering from several small blood clots on both sides of his brain. Midtjylland added that the 28-year-old's condition was the result of an extremely rare inflammatory condition in his brain vessels. Olsen was placed on a ventilator in a hospital on the 20th of February after losing consciousness at home. The club revealed the player was in a stable condition. He has made 47 senior appearances for Sweden and has also had spells at Swedish side AIK Krasnova in Russia and Anderlecht in Belgium. And that's all on this, all at this hour right here on News Now. But before we go, let's take another look at some of the major stories. Ex-CBN Governor Emefiele has been accused of forging Buhari boss Mustafa's signature. Mali, Niger, Republic, and Burkina Faso have announced joint military cooperation. And finally, we told you that Zimbabwe has condemned fresh U.S. sanctions. You can send your eyewitness reports to the WhatsApp number on the screen. Do follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I'm Judith at TV.